So this week we looked at two concepts, research and stigma, that seem to be somewhat potentially unrelated. Research is an important concept throughout all of this course, and stigma is as well, and the reality is they actually do interconnect. So let's look at how they might do so. There's a variety of types of research that we can do, and I ask you to apply the experimental method to your assignment this week. So if we were to apply an experimental method to maybe stigma as it relates to maybe whether individuals are dangerous or not, it may be actually very challenging to do, because how do we operationalize what's dangerous, what's not? At what levels is someone dangerous? Do they have to kill someone? Do they have to rob someone? Do they have to assault someone? Or is there other factors that may come into play? Can they be verbally aggressive? And it's hard to operationalize that information and to define an independent and a dependent variable. So what we can do in this case, though, is use a correlational study, another type of tool, research study that can be very helpful and useful. And when you do look at the correlational research in this, when we're talking about dangerousness and stigma, very few people with mental illness are actually dangerous to society. It's actually much more likely for someone with mental illness to be harmed by others than they are actually to do the harming themselves. But there are three factors that come into play when we talk about dangerousness to society in terms of mental illness. Those three big factors are: one would be a history of violence. Someone who's been violent in the past is likely to be violent again in the future. Two would be substance abuse, whether it's drugs, alcohol, or some other type of substance that influences the way we think and can act then. And the third is, again, another factor that plays a role in our loss of contact with reality, which would be psychosis, particularly individuals who have paranoid psychosis. But because these factors aren't common in mental illness, it leads to people with mental illness not actually being very dangerous, but being perceived as dangerous, because when we see news accounts, media accounts, those factors are some of the biggest factors that come into play. So when we look at the correlational data, we can get a better understanding of this information. Now, it is important to note that correlation does not equal causation, which is why then we go back to experiments to develop a better understanding, even more in depth than we could otherwise.